Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes behind schedule here getting things set up. Did I even update the go live notification? I don't know what that's going to say. Hopefully it's something relevant. Oh gosh, where's my... There we go. All right, it's been a while since I was live. I was out of town last week. Apologize for the delay there. And there is much to discuss over the last couple of weeks. Let me just make sure my audio is working and then we'll get to it. It'd help if I could find the Twitch app. There we go. Testing. Does that sound okay? Music's a little loud. All right. Good enough for me. Let's get into it. So just to give a quick summary, my name is Cheese Doodle. I am a member of the TagPro Future Group and development team for the free browser game TagPro. Our job is working on updates for the game, making sure that things are getting better in time, making sure that the community knows what's going on, what we're trying to do, and how we plan about doing it. TagPro, for those not aware, is a free-to-play online capture the flag game. You can play it in any browser, 4v4. Hop in at tagpro.gg. So, I was promising a release last week, and the week before, and the week before. And here I am in front of you today without a release. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. The good news is the release is done. Actually done. We have one last branch to merge in. Everything else has been tested, is working as expected. The reason there is not currently a release live is because it's Friday. And it is bad juju to do a release on a Friday when half your development team is not going to be available over the weekend. So instead of putting up an update that should work but might not work on a Friday and then disappearing right before the Super Bowl on Sunday, we have decided to wait until Monday to go live with this release, and then we will enjoy the thing we have put together. So a couple more days. This time I mean it. It's actually done. I promise you it's done. So we're going live Monday morning. We'll put the downtime notice up on Sunday after the Super Bowl probably, and then we will get to it next week. So we're gonna treat, whoops. Let's see. Am I back? I got an OBS crash, and then everything crashed, which I guess makes a lot of sense. Am I back? Maybe. I'm live. Okay, we're live. Sorry about that. I have no idea what just happened. I got a pop-up that OBS crashed, and then OBS crashed. So anyway, where was I? We're going to go through our development updates for the last 2 weeks this time around. Then we'll switch over, go through the candy board posts from the last 2 weeks. And then we have a small feature building session at the end as usual. Next week, we are going to change up the approach a little bit. It's going to be release mode. And we're going to go through everything that was in that release going live on Monday and talk through the implications of it, how we got to the point that we're at, what we're trying to do with those things going forward, and kind of just get all the thoughts that we have out there for everybody to see. But for now, we'll start nice and simple with our candy board posts. Or no, sorry, development updates. That's what you care about. Let me pull that up real quick. So the last time we were live was the 31st. That's right, it was the Halloween stream. So let's go all the way back because a lot has happened between then and now. We've gotten some really technical stuff over the last couple of weeks, so I'm not sure how well I can explain all of this. Basically, we were testing things, finding little issues that came up, and then those little issues pointed towards bigger issues, and we decided that instead of getting the release out with these issues, that they worked, but it wasn't great, we should just fix them, have it work correctly from the start to make sure that we're not creating bigger issues for ourselves in the future. And a lot of that has to do with the database. It's really, we're at a, I don't know what the right word is for this. We're at in a state where things are delicate. We don't want to put a big update that makes things really hard to work with in the future, because if you're updating player like database stuff, for example, like you're making sure players have the right skill score, making sure that they have the right flares and all of that. You don't want to mess that up and then have to manually fix all of these entries later on. So it's better off to make sure, like we were pretty sure it was working. Now we're definitely sure that these things are working with the database. So we're not going to have this huge backlog of things to fix in like a week or two if something went wrong. So that's what the majority of the last 2 weeks has been spent on, kind of getting all those little things just at a point where we can say basically they're perfect for what we're trying to do here. And that's why we get to go live on Monday. So starting on the 31st, updates for development. We have cleaning up. No, that was already on stream. Where'd that go? There we go. Okay, we rebuilt the backend process used for updating the live games page. So on the next release, there's going to be a page in the joiner that lists all of the active public games that is ranked in casual. So you know who is playing, who is in those games, how long that game has until it ends, so that you can spectate the game if you want to. You can see who's online if you want to. You can know when you're probably going to get a ranked game, because you can see, okay, that game with people in my tier is about to end. That means I'm probably going to get a game when they come back to the joiner. So all of that, it's a very complicated thing. The back end to it was not super well done in terms of efficiency of iterating through things. It was slowing down the rest of the joiner. So we rebuilt all of that and then kept the front end that was good. And now we're kind of, instead of doing the same work 3 times on the back end, we're doing it once and just using that data when we need it to. So that was the thing I did the night of that stream. Then that bug with it being too zoomed in when spectating happens to every TagPro streamer. I've been paying attention. Yes, I'm aware of that. We should be working on that after this release, but thank you, Bambi, for that one. We have a feature on the way that did not make this release, but it is a really important one for group presets. So right now we have, as you've seen, you have a code that you can copy to take the settings from the group that you're in. For those who are not aware, this is a really important feature to me. If you go to the groups tab and you're playing a game and you pick a bunch of settings to do whatever it is that you want to do, it doesn't really matter what I click here, but you've got all these custom settings. What you can do is you can go up to this group preset button and you can generate a preset, and that right there is going to save your settings for the future. So this already exists. It's working fine on the group. If you wanted to load into a new group with those settings, you can just paste them right in there, create your group, and those settings continue to exist. So it makes it a lot easier to share settings with somebody else for like mini games, for like private games, like your competitive leagues have their own rule set, stuff like that. The issue we ran into was that the way this was built, it uses a certain letter to indicate which setting is being changed, obviously, but we ran out of letters for the number of group features we've been adding. So we have a branch on the way to rewrite how that is done, to go from 52 possible group settings to whatever 52 times 9 is, or 10, so 520, which is more group settings than we're ever going to need ever. So that will be in soon, which is good. So that's the first thing that came in there. A lot of back and forth on the cleanup that I mentioned previously. That a lot of what we did was just kind of talking about the correct approach for sending out this data, making sure it was sanitized and everything. Let me skip ahead past all of that. Blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, another issue with that was the game clock. So making sure that the timer that you guys see when you're in the joiner actually shows 10 seconds away from what the game is at that moment. We were having some issues with synchronization between the game process and the joiner, because technically those are not related at all. The joiner is the thing that you get to when you go to the website. You click on whatever tab you want. That's all running on one process. But when you go to a game, it spawns off its own thing that's completely independent. So if TagPro crashes while you're in a game, your game does not also crash, because it's not dependent on one another. Vice versa, if your game crashes, it won't bring down the whole site, which is a good thing, but it just means that getting them to talk to each other can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So just a lot of optimization, making sure that we weren't creating new problems by having them talk in specific ways. A lot of discussion came up next about bandwidth, making sure that we're updating things correctly at night. We have a 4 a.m. reset time right now, so we're making sure that that wasn't going to mess up any games that were going on if it did happen during a game. Making sure that we use the correct days values for the tiers that we've talked about, the dynamic tiers where the number of tiers in a region can expand or contract based on how many active players there are. We don't want that to happen at like 4 in the afternoon when there are a bunch of players online. We'd rather have it happen at a quiet time of day when it's less likely to cause any problems. So making sure that was good to go. Time zones kept coming up with that as well. We have now an update on the leaders page to tell you when tiers were last expanded or contracted, so that you know if you went up or down a tier, you're not sure why, you can check there and you can say, oh, we just expanded tiers 2 days ago. That's why my tier dropped down by 1 or half a tier, basically. Then we've got some issues with downloads that came up. I think this is probably Bambi. Actually, you might be the one who's causing this to happen. We're getting an intermittent crash where somebody tries to download a game and something breaks, and we couldn't really figure out what was going on. And it has to do with duplicate download requests. Like if 2 people request a download at the same time, somehow or another, one of them's getting bad data and the other one's getting good data, but then something crashes. So we were looking into that a little more. I think we have a fix for it that will go out in the next release. It's a pretty minor thing though on the side. Couple more things to do with the daily tier calculations that I'm not going to get into right now. The in-between seasons skill reset, we had to work on that. We were trying to figure out the best way to take your current leaderboard and say, okay, this season has ended, we're starting a new season. What do we do with these players? So it's a 2-part issue, because one part of it is that you have a spread and you want to bring players back down towards the starting point without completely resetting everybody. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What got complicated is the skill score creep. These players who have gotten way out towards the top because of the existing bug right now with adding in skill score to the system if they have a high statistical performance, which is fixed, but not on the actual site yet. So all these players at the very top have been benefiting from this for months now at this point. So they're way, way out. So our usual algorithm that we're going to use to compress everybody down wouldn't really compress those players enough. Like it would take everybody who's in your normal range and get them down together, but think about who's out here. They only get crunched down a little bit toward the middle. So we were giving special handling for these players to get them also down with everybody else. They're not going to lose their spot necessarily, but they're not going to be way, way out in front just because they benefited from the bug that's going on for season 0. So there was a lot of back and forth on the best way to calculate that. I don't think I could really explain it well if I wanted to, because Orchid did the majority of the work there. Shout out to Orchid. But that is done now and in and good to go. So Bambi says, I haven't been downloading games. Gravity does download every Gravity replay, though. It could be something to do with that bot. Yeah, either way, it should be fixed. I know you'd been talking about ways to get like a lot of download data in the past. That's why I was calling you out there, but it sounds like it's much more likely to be an automated process. Ranked history. What is this? Oh yeah, we found an issue with the direct updates where if you're watching on the spectate page, if you want to see all the active games, if a game ended in a mercy roll, it wasn't updating that the game had ended in a mercy roll. It was just showing that it ended with the score before it was a mercy roll. And then voided games, instead of showing who won in the void, it was just showing there was a tie, which is not true. So we got those to update properly. We've got issues with delayed starts on ranked or all games, because you go into a game, the game starts, it doesn't show up on that other page until 10 seconds later. So making sure that that timing was happening as expected. Void force, that's not relevant. We fixed a couple of UI elements with the direct spectating to make sure you can tell what you're actually doing when you click on a button. The download thing again. Some work on a branch that's not going to make this release, but will make the next one. We're adding in, I think I've mentioned this in the past, the graph to the player chart that shows you what tier you were in, how high or low your skill score went during the season for every season. So that's going to be in the next release, which shouldn't be too long after this upcoming one. Some work was done on that in the background. More work on that. Making sure the leaderboards persist through resets overnight. I talked about that 4 a.m. reset, making sure the leaderboard doesn't disappear when that happens. More back and forth on the compression that I'm talking about. Sorry, a lot of these I'm scrolling through, it's like 5 or 6 notes about the same thing, so it's not anything new to tell you guys. Just want to skip past that. Cache. Come on. Oh yeah, we've updated the icons on the select page, and I want to actually talk about this a little bit more. Right now you have your little ribbon flare, you have your axe flare, and nothing. We updated this to put an actual Font Awesome icon in here, but I want to be very clear that that's not the expected final product. So it's going to show a ball moving on casual. It's going to show a little tier system on ranked and just an eyeball on spectate. They look better than this. It's not a fantastic visual in my opinion, but it's good enough. That's a placeholder while we work on a longer term graphic. I think somebody sent me, I don't want to call it the wrong person, I think it might have been Nabby, sent me some like proof of concept stuff, like having a nicer icon that shows what each of those things is. We want to work on that. We just don't want to rush it out the door while we're trying to get the rest of this release going. So those are placeholders. If you hate them, give me something better. I'm happy to work with you on it, and we'll get it in later. Then we've got backend data storing the map selection rates for each map, because the map test committee is going to want to know how frequently certain maps are being picked, but they need a way to get that data. So we're having an API for their bot that can fetch historical data and current data for map selection rates, so they can make good decisions about the ranked map rotation in addition to the regular map rotation for casual. Back and forth, notifications for tiers, icons, more of the same. Come on. Merge down the compression. Map stats. Sorry, I'll get to something relevant soon. There we go. More work. We finalized the awarding of different flares. I think I've talked about it a couple times by now. There are 8 tiers, or sometimes fewer if you have a smaller region. You earn the lowest tier flare first, no matter what tier you're in. Then you earn the next one up, all the way up until whatever tier you are at. You will never earn a tier flare above the tier that you are in. So if you're looking at the leaderboard tab, if I am in diamond, I can earn every flare up to diamond, but I could never earn these 3 flares without actually getting to that tier. And you earn these flares by winning a certain number of games at or above that tier. So this that I'm looking at now is just making sure that you earn this one first, then you earn this one, etc., all the way up. And then I think I've talked about the locking already, so I'll skip over this one. It's just that if you are active for a season, so you've averaged 15 games per week for the duration of the season. Again, seasons should only be 3 months long when we're going forward. This season 0 has been very, very long. That is not the intended length of a season. So 15 games per week, pretty much everybody on the board except for, I think, it might have just crossed over at 480. Yeah, most players are above this anyway, but just making sure that we don't have players who only played like 100 games, shot to the top, and then sit there. You got to stay active if you want to lock in your flare for the next season as well. And then earn a different flare that's season specific. So for season 0, if you were active at all, not this many games, you just had to play a single game for season 0. But going forward, if you hit that 15 games per week minimum, you will earn a one-time only flare related to that season. So season 0 flare is in, it's good to go. Everyone who played a ranked game will earn it. Then going forward, the season 1 flare will be unique, it'll be different, and you will need to do 15 games per week to get that flare. Bambi says, is the skill score going to update instantly in the next season, or still the 20-minute updates? Skill score, yeah, we'll get to that in my things that are changing here. I actually spent a lot of time on that yesterday. It should be direct updates, so you're going to have the game finishes. In that game, you should see exactly how much you gained or lost for that game. Then when the game ends, the leaderboard should immediately reflect how much you went up or down, in addition to your profile should also reflect how much you went up or down, including your rank, including your movement score from a week ago. So that should all be instant in the next release. It's a little bit out of sync right now, which is why you're seeing things like 20-minute updates. That's not supposed to be happening, but that is fixed for the next release. I was testing that a lot yesterday. That's good. Admin page, just adding more information to this page here so we can see who's in the joiner, know how long they've been waiting, making sure that the time they've been waiting for is accurate. So we know this person's been in the joiner for 3 minutes, this person for 5 seconds, making sure those numbers are actually accurate for every player in the game. Also 7 games going, nice. Some logging window. This is more of a development thing. Nobody cares about this, but we added in a way for Orchid and myself to grab logs without taking the server down, which is really nice. So we can immediately see if somebody reports something wrong with the joiner, instead of having to wait for that night to grab the log for the day and then look into it, we can just grab it right then and look into it, which is going to be huge for debugging and figuring out what's going wrong if things go wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. It's going to work perfectly. But in case it does, we'll now have a better way of getting that information and moving on. So that's good. Player click menu. What is that? Oh, this is not in this release, but it is going to be in the next one. This is an egg ball request where if you are in a game and you have the egg and you want to pass it, you need to click on your screen, obviously. If you click on a player, it currently pulls up the report menu, which is very jarring and not at all what you want to happen because you don't have to report people in a private game. And also you have to click to play this game. So we've disabled the clicking on players in private games. That'll go in the next release just to make sure that's not causing problems for anybody. If you were clicking on players to apply a personal mute, you can still do that on the scoreboard. So just press escape, go on the right side, click on that. It'll work just the way it did before. And public games, clicking will still work just fine. But private games, you will no longer get that menu by clicking on another ball in the next release, not this release. Some back-end stuff that's not relevant. More scoreboard stuff, making sure that it looks good. Sorry, I should clarify what that is. In those post-game updates, saying who you are, what your adjustment was for that ranked game. We just had to figure out where to put it. We decided to put it below the scoreboard and make sure that it pops up with the scoreboard and goes away with the scoreboard after a game ends. Just so a couple things here, just making sure that looks better. Hi Cheese, when is Season 1? Hello, Meowsatp. Season 1 is going to be roughly 1 week after this next release. I mentioned at the start of the stream, the release is scheduled for Monday morning. So we're going to make sure that release is live, stable. Then we're going to add in neutral flag, make sure that is stable. And then we will transition to Season 1. So that should happen somewhere, the release is Monday, somewhere in the next week after that, we should be transitioning to, nope, not next week again. We're actually done this time. It's scheduled for Monday. We could have done it today. We decided not to, because Friday night release or Friday afternoon releases before developers are leaving for the weekend is a recipe for disaster. So we're going to do it Monday. It's done. It's happening. Not next week again. But you're right. I have been saying that for like 3 months now. So that is good. What else? Tier caches, making sure we have updated stuff on the leaderboard, blah, blah, blah. API stuff for the map test committee. The flares again. Oh, this is a fun one. Again, not in this release, but it will be in the next one. We are adding in a setting to adjust the strength of gravity wells, which is very fun. So right now you have gravity wells. They pull players in toward the middle at a very set frequency or speed, whatever you want to call it, strength. You can now modify that to make it stronger or weaker, and you can invert it. So it becomes a anti-gravity well. It pushes players away at a strength that you want it to be. So very excited for that to be in, to see what some people do with it in private lobbies. But that'll be in the next release after this one, and I think it'll be pretty cool. So that's in progress. Actually, it's done, just waiting for review. Then we've got some more stuff for the post-game updates, showing what your skill score adjustment was. We tried a couple different approaches to make sure it updated properly. More stuff with flares. Blah, blah, blah. Some race conditions had to be fixed. God, there's so much of this stuff. It's just the same thing over and over. To go through so many iterations. We had some issues with players who were spectating a game because they clicked on the direct spectate option. When that game ends, where do they go? They should go back to the joiner, or they should go back to that direct spectate page. That's working now. We have an ongoing issue that I'd like some feedback on in that direct spectate. So if you're on this page here, where you say, I want to spectate games, but I don't want to be in the joiner. So you're in this page, it shows you a list of all the games. You click on a game and say, I want to watch that one, and it takes you to that game. If you wanted to go back to the spectate page, what do you click? Because right now the exit button in that game takes you back to the home page. That's expected behavior, that the exit button is the home page. If you change that, now you have a button that does two different things, which is but if you click the back button, where it takes you back a page, the joiner says, oh, you're supposed to be in this game, and it sends you right back in to that game. So we don't have a great way of watching a game and then coming out of that game back to the page where you see all the active games. So I'm not sure how we're going to approach that. It's going to be a bug in their initial release, just because it's not really a thing we expect people to do. Like, you click a game, you watch the game to completion, then it will take you back to that page where you can pick another game to watch. So if you have ideas on how to present that, I'm open to them, but that's going to be something we address after this release. Will it be a group setting or a map making setting? I'm assuming that was about the gravity wells. That will be a group setting only, not tile specific. It'll be for the whole group. So you cannot have gravity wells with different strength. They'll be all the same strength of whatever you set it to be for that group. So yeah, let me know if you have thoughts about the direct spectate thing. It'll be more obvious to explain when I actually have it in front of me in the next release. End of game overlay, flares. And then we had a testing session, and the testing session actually went quite well. We only found, you're gonna laugh at it, we only found 15 things that went wrong, which is actually pretty good considering the size of the release that we had. So thank you everybody who was able to help us test that night. We fixed all 15 of those things that night, had another testing session, and we found 2 really annoying things. So we almost did the release yesterday. We were this close, and we found an issue with the leaderboard having to do with what Bambi just mentioned, the direct updates. So I had to end up rebuilding everything from the, not rebuilding, modifying and adding to the leaderboard direct updates at the end of the game. But that's not anything I need to bother explaining right now. We had some fixes to the joiner when you're in a group, because right now we have the world map and then a chat box, but that world map was removed to add in the live games, and the chat box just kind of got sent off to the side, so we fixed it so that the chat box is still there, just a smaller view for the active games, making sure the group leader is the only person who can pick a game to spectate for the group. You can't have somebody else send everybody into a game. Then we've got fixes to save attempts that I broke and then fixed and then broke again and then fixed again. Ranked launchers are included properly in the game count. So we had an update. I think I talked about this like 2 months ago. If you're in a launcher, which is where if you play ranked, it sends you to the map voting page. We call that a launcher. If you're in that launcher right now, the site does not acknowledge that you exist. So it might say 5 players online with 0 games, but there are actually 8 players in a launcher waiting to go to a game. We updated it so that those 8 players are represented online. So it would say 13 players, but it would still say 0 games because there weren't in a game yet. So now we're counting the launcher as a game as well. So it'll say 8 players in one game, even though it's 8 players in a launcher about to go to a game. Same thing, just easier display on the front end. Then we've got mini games. I built this wrong. So I had made a branch that said I want mini games to happen more frequently when players are waiting for something to do. I made the branch exactly how I wrote it, and then I realized that was not what I want. So now, after that fix, if you are queued for ranked or casual and you select mini games, if it cannot find a ranked or a casual game for you, it will send you to a mini game, even if there is an ongoing ranked or casual game. So right now, if it sees a casual game in your region, it will not send you to a mini game in your region. But because we added that direct joining from mini games, I didn't explain that well. Originally, when mini games were made, you could go to casual or you could go to a mini game. Now, if you go to a mini game, you can be pulled out of that mini game into casual. So now we have no reason not to send you to a mini game if there's nothing else going on. So if you're waiting for a casual game, even though there's one in your region, if there's no spot for you in it, it'll send you to a minigame because you selected minigames. And then if a spot opens up, it'll pull you out of the minigame into the casual game. So minigames will spawn a little bit more frequently, but only when there's nothing else to do. So if people who don't want to just sit in the joiner and wait or don't want to spectate, they can select minigames and not have to worry about missing anything else. They can just play the minigame. When a spot opens up, they'll go into the actual game. So that's in for the next release and working properly now. Some tweaks to the end of game issue that I described a while ago, where if a ranked game finishes and there are 8 players in it and half of them have casual selected, when they come back to the joiner, if there was an active casual game missing players, the players who just came back from ranked, some of them would immediately get shunted in to the active casual game, which sounds good at the surface, but then what happens is they arrive in the casual game, reconnect to the joiner, and match back with everybody else who didn't get sent to the casual game, create a ranked game, and then get pulled right back out of that casual game. So the casual game now had people join for like 5 seconds and then leave right away. So nobody else was able to take those spots in the meantime. Those players were there for no time at all, which isn't productive for the game. So now instead of that, those players will come back to the joiner, stay in the joiner, and then go to the ranked game. There's other peripheral stuff about still filling in the casual game, but it's not. It's better now. I promise it's better. Just go with it. Find page group. What is this? Oh, just the chat and the leaderboard, whatever, or in the joiner. The direct update for the leaderboard cache. I thought I had something I wanted to say about that. No, I don't. Some bugs with the escape key in games, with the leaderboard popping up, or scoreboard showing up in games. We accidentally were showing private games in the list of active games, so those are hidden now. What else? We had to fix the filter buttons. So if you're on that spectate page where there are active games going on, if you only want to watch casual or only want to watch ranked, there were buttons that said casual and ranked, and you could pick which one you wanted to filter. Players in testing were misunderstanding those buttons as these buttons here, where they could pick a game they wanted to play, and it was just hiding and showing games instead of taking them where they wanted to go. So we changed the filter layout so it's a little more obviously just a filter and not a button that will take you into a game, which is a pretty funny one to me. Some issues with players with long names that get truncated now. Hiding the list of active games when you're going from a private game, from a private group to a private game, and same thing, hiding it when you go from a ranked launcher to a ranked game. There's no reason for you to be spectating a game in the 2 seconds that you're between those 2 pages. It'll just show the world map for those players like it does now. Some layout fixes, making sure that voided games actually show the player who voided the game. So during testing, we realized that if a player voids, they leave, they weren't showing up in the adjustments at the bottom. And you can have your own opinions about this, but we kind of like the name and shame game of, okay, this player left and they're losing. It's nice for everyone else to say, okay, they left and they messed up my game, but at least I can see that they lost skill score for it. Like, it's just kind of like a schadenfreude thing. So you get to see their actual adjustment as a negative now if they voided the game, including if they don't make it into the game. If they never show up, it'll show the same thing now as well. Post-game updates. Oh yeah, making sure that flares were awarded properly. So if you are in a game and you win the game, and that game was the game that you needed to earn your flare for whatever tier is next for you, you get a notification in-game that says player earned the platinum flare or whatever, and then you also make that your active flare. That wasn't working properly, so that's fixed now and working for the next release. That was based on testing. Is that everything? No, it's not. What the heck? Quitters, players, yeah. No, this is all little stuff from the testing session. This is nothing relevant. Just making sure the leaderboards update properly when somebody gets moved around. So if you played a game, say you're Mex and you win a game and you moved up to Challenger, making sure that header doesn't come with you. So you'd have like duplicated headers. It was just a weird visual thing. Oh yeah, and then making sure that that activity is updated properly. So now in the next release, if you are inactive, if you haven't played a game in a long time, uh, that's not a great example. Whatever. There are some players here who haven't played in a long time. If you have not played in this long, you'll be removed from the leaderboard, so you're no longer displayed there. We're just making sure that when a game ends and you were off the leaderboard, that you get properly put back in, and everybody else's rank actually adjusts as you would expect it to. That one in. Then a really niche bug that I found by accident. If you are queued for North America and Europe for ranked, and you are in the highest tier, your tier 1, and everybody else who is queued is only queued for North America, and there are exactly 8 of you, it would not create your North American ranked game if you were the only person in the highest tier. Or if there were 2 of you and both of you had Europe also selected, it was trying to make a European game only for those players, but it couldn't find 8, so it was a really annoying niche thing. That's fixed now, so you'll get that North American game, and it will still try to make the European game first, as we want it to. We added in the actual. I forgot to do this for testing. We added in the actual tier flares, so you can see what the flare that you're going to earn is now. So it'll show, instead of these question blocks, the actual flares for those, and then making sure the profile also has all of the flares there. You can't see them right now, obviously. And then showing you on hover how many wins you actually need at or above that tier to earn that flare. That's all in and ready to go. And I think that is everything. So, holy moly. It's been a busy 2 weeks. I was in Spain for half of those 2 weeks, so I was trying to do this on a laptop, and it was a miserable experience. I do not recommend trying to code on a different setup. But yeah, that was a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on. So Bambi says it'd probably be best to put the list of games to spectate somewhere on the spectate page rather than add a button to go back to the initial spectating selection page. Okay, so this is about the question I asked. If you are on the spectate page and you say, I want to watch that game, and you go to that game, how best do you get back to that page without going back to the home page by clicking the exit button? So Bambi says it's best to put the list of games that are going on. What? You're saying in the game that you're in, you want to see all the other games that are happening, so you can just switch from one to the next instead of going back to a different page between them? Is that what you're saying? I could maybe make that work. I don't know if I like that or not. It'd be a bit of a process to get that information into that game, which would be annoying. I'm gonna give you a hard maybe on that one. I'm not sure if that's the cleanest option we have available. I see what you're saying though. I see the appeal at least. So, all right. Well, we'll talk about that. Again, it'll be a lot easier when we have the what am I saying? It'll be a lot easier when you actually have it in front of you to have some thoughts about it. But that's a good starting point for that. So let us shift gears now away from development updates, unless there was anything else that on the back end. We have just the release notes getting written, all that for back end stuff. We're working on getting the TagPro Blue Sky up and running as well, and the TagPro Facebook group up and running as well. So some updates on the way for those. But anyway, Candy Board. Looks like we didn't have too many things coming in the last 2 weeks, so we'll just work through these real quick, and then we'll switch gears to our feature building session, and we'll look forward to the weekend. So, player leaving group causes infinite joiner. If I am in a 3-player group, bug reports are the only thing being displayed. That's why it's so few. If I'm in a 3-player group and 1 player leaves the group, the joiner never puts the remaining players in game, despite the joiner saying it is looking for a game. The 2 remaining players have to return to group and then re-queue. I think that makes sense from a joiner perspective. No, it doesn't actually, no. This is public or private game? That would... I'm gonna add a comment here and we'll come back to this. think I need to clarify that before I can look into it. I joined a ranked game alone. I think I might have been the one to accidentally break it though. Huh. What happened here? Well, it's exactly what they said. Oh no, everyone else tried. Hold on. What's going on here? Hey, it's definitely a ranked game. And then everyone else joins in. That's so strange. Is there somebody who never showed up? And it didn't void either, which is weird. Oh, no, it did void. Okay. Huh. That is strange. Post this on Reddit. Close enough. So, two-part answer. One, this is obviously a bug. Not supposed to happen. Two, we have a lot of changes going into the joiner right now, and I'm pretty sure this is a session issue on their account related to the joiner, and I'm pretty sure it's fixed in the next release. So I think I'm gonna ignore this for now and come back to it in a bit because I'm pretty sure we've already fixed this. All right. Yeah, it voided after another person left. That triggered the check to see if all the players were there. The answer was no, and then it voided the game properly. I'm not sure why the first check was missed, but I'm pretty sure this is fixed, so I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Let casual chat know if player left for a ranked game. So we have something similar to this already, which I think is a little bit better. Let me pull it up real quick so everyone can see it. Where did this go? Yeah, so we have a branch right here. Mark ranked ready players on the client side for their teammates only. So basically the summary is if you're in a casual game and one of your teammates is going to a ranked game, that player gets the notification that they're going to be going to a ranked game in about a minute, and then in a minute they get pulled into that game. That is changing because in that minute, if they pop at any point, the joiner is trying to replace them while they are respawning. So more often than not, players should be pulled out of the game while they are respawning, have somebody take their spot, and then respawn for them. So it should be a lot less disruptive. But it would still be good to know if you are in a game that your teammate is going to be leaving soon. So what this branch does is that that player who's going to be leaving soon gets the notification your ranked game is starting soon, but all of their teammates should also be able to see on their ball or on the scoreboard or something that they are leaving soon, so they know that they're going to be disappearing soon. So right now we have the AFK and pending indicators on somebody's ball that say that this player is not pressing their key press, they're not pressing their keys. If we have something similar that says this player is going to be leaving the game soon, so only their teammates can see, I think that's good. We did not want it to be visible to the enemy team because then it's information that could be exploited in some way. But for your teammates, it's good to know, okay, this person's on regrab and they have the ranked ready notification. I'm not going to trust that they're going to be covering regrab perfectly because there's a chance they might actually leave at the same time. So again, that should be happening less, so there should be less of a problem, but it is still a problem that we have a branch ready to go for. The in-game ranked queue denotation is what we're going to merge this into. So instead of sending a notification to the lobby after it happens, letting people know ahead of time that it might happen is probably better. Yeah, and they know new players aren't randomly leaving because they know why they're leaving in that case. So gonna merge that in. Combine leaders and player search tabs. Now that is controversial. Interesting. New tab could be labeled players or something, which would include both features, could help with clutter. So they're saying that take this tab that we're on right now and this tab and put them together. That is an interesting note. I think that this would not work just because it's just so different, right? Like this is a place you go to see a list of players And this, well, you see a list of players there too, but like you're interacting with that player search tab a lot more than you are with the leaders tab. Like this is all information posted for you. You don't do anything other than look at it and maybe open an account link, and that's it. Like there's no I want to find this. There's no filtering here. There's no. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? I feel like that's not like they're similar. I get what you're going for. I just don't think that they're really similar enough that we can justify putting this behind an extra click to look somebody up. But at the same time, I don't know. I follow it. I just don't think I like it. I think that's my final answer. It makes sense. I just don't like. I'd rather take a step back and say, okay, this whole leader and maps and like all the tabs here are kind of ugly in the first place. We should be rebuilding how all the tabs are organized and how they're presented, rather than trying to consolidate and present them in a different way. And yeah, the leaders page already has like it's a tab with tabs that have tabs and drop downs. Like it's just a lot going on here already. The UI is questionable at best. So I think that I'm gonna say no on this one, even though I can see what you're going for, the governor. Justification. Whoops. Justification. Justification is heard. How do you spell this word? Justification is heard. Rank should be the default when going to leaders. That is actually in the next release. I forgot to mention that. This tab is going to be the first one that pops up. Justification is heard. For now, the differences between the tabs are too different. For consolidation. One is a list, one is interactive. There are already conflicting UI elements in the leaders tab alone. Without this change, we will likely need an overhaul of the whole tab system in the future, rather than a one tab consolidation. Not a bad decision though. I get it. I hear it. I forgot until testing that the points you earned for the day were called rank. Yeah, it's yeah. This needs a better name. Well, there's the other point of that, which is in the next release. Not the next release. After the ranked release is done, we'll have an intermediate release with some other stuff in progress, like the gravity map, the gravity well thing I mentioned, things like that. The in-game shop is going to require the introduction of like a tag coin system. We're probably going to axe points and just have coins, so we could work the name change into that. That's not a final decision, by the way, but that's kind of where my head is at with that. Because what do points do, right? You get them at the end of games, and you get daily, weekly, monthly flares for them, and that's kind of it. So there's no like whatever, right? Like it doesn't really do much else. Like if you go to the profile, you've got like your all-time points. I guess, does anybody ever look at this stat? Does anybody ever go, oh, that person has 541,068 points? Like, no, nobody cares about that. Like they're looking at games or wins, or they're looking at like time played, but nobody's looking at the number of points that you earned post game as a statistic that really means anything. So I think we're okay to move away from that system and replace it with some sort of tag coin thing. We'll need to keep the leader flare. Like we're going to keep these flares. Obviously, there's no reason to get rid of the daily, weekly, monthly. But I think we can modify how they're presented, even though the way they're earned is pretty much the same. Just to keep things a little bit cleaner, because calling these ranked points is very, very bad when you have a ranked system with skill rank points. So yeah, I'm with you on that, Grant. What did I miss here? Grant says no. No to what? All the scoreboard histories that were posted. You honestly don't remember. Okay. Success. All the scoreboard histories that were posted on Reddit were deleted. And I said, yeah, I'm bummed about that too. I forget who was running those. I think it was Steppen maybe who was running it, or was it? I forget. But there was like the weekly update of how many points there were. That was a nice thing to look at. I was using that actually for metrics of player counts, because I was looking at the tops of leaderboards and saying, okay, how many points did it take to get to the top 100 in 2021, and comparing that to the next year in the same week. And it was pretty cool to be able to compare that and see, okay, more players are playing now, fewer players now. We don't have that anymore, which is a bit of a bummer, so we have to add our own logging in. Oh, if anyone looks at the points, no. Oh yeah, nobody looks at. Yeah, nobody cares what the nobody cares what this number is on your profile. Yeah. Okay. Help text shows a new game will start shortly in private group. Oh, this came up during testing. Someone was like, is that supposed to happen? No. So if you're in a private game and you have tips enabled, at the end of your game, a tip comes up that says, this game has ended, a new game will start shortly. That is true for public games. It is not true for private games. It's going to send you back to your group. So this needs to be removed for groups only so that it's not a misleading tip. So we can make a ticket for that. Remove public game tips from private games. There may be others, but currently this game has ended. A new game will start shortly is displayed as a tip in private games. Should be removed. This is a 2-second fix, I think, so I'm going to mark that as a low effort. And it's not really a bug or an enhancement. I'm just going to mark it as a low effort. And relevant candy post is help text shows a new game will. Okay. And then we'll mark this as planned. And then we'll copy that. Okay, next. Keeps saying loading. Every time I join and play, it just says loading when I'm a team. When I'm a team? Dokkan's a whole team. All right. Yeah, I think Bash has this one covered. I'm going to leave this because he knows more about that than I do. Add more playback speed options for replays with level 1.5 or 1.25 speed option when watching back, maybe even a slider or fill section to put specific numbers. So let's take a look at the replays real quick. What do we offer here? We've got 1, 2, 4, 0.75, 0.5, 0.25. Okay. I don't think there's anything stopping us from doing this. I know that at a minimum, we are beholden to the 60 frames per second system that we run on, but I don't think there's anything stopping us from adding those. I think the bigger issue is that it's a drop down, so it'd be kind of ugly if we could make this into a scroll instead of a drop down maybe, but I don't know. That's more of a UI question. From a feature standpoint, there's nothing wrong with adding that. So sure, why not? I don't think I want to do custom because if somebody picks a number that's not compatible with that 60 frames per second, it could look like garbage. So we're better off giving people preset values that we know are valid. But support for additional replay speed options or playback speed options. Additional options. Note, replays should remain compatible with the 60 frames second updates. So a custom speed or playback option is likely not viable. UI will be the main. I don't feel like saying that. Relevant candy post. Add more. We'll have to talk about this more. UI to be discussed. Relevant candy post. And this is probably a pretty low effort fix or enhancement because it's really just adding more options and making sure that they're divisible by. Divisible? That's not the right way of saying that. Because 0.75 is not divisible by. Is it? No, maybe it is. I don't feel like doing math right now. That's good enough. Create. Planned. I'm winning ranked games and losing EO for it. What's up? This is, I guess it's in progress. This is due to a synchronization issue. I'm not going to spell this word right. Synchronization. Is there a Z in there? Did I nail it? Post-game updates is fixed for the next release, which will be out in a few days. Toggle notification sounds when people join or chat in group. It would be nice to have a sound so that we can tab out and come back when a second user joins. Okay, that's actually a very reasonable use case. If you're doing something else and you send somebody a group link and you say, hey, join up, you want to know when they actually do. I can see that being a very relevant thing. That's a good suggestion. Let's make a ticket for. I'm gonna make sure there isn't a ticket for that already first, and then because we've talked about notifications in the past. So the only similar thing we have right now is add an audio cue when messages are sent in the pregame launcher, which is letting people opt into launcher chat. So we can probably just make a new ticket and say it's related to this one. Just giving players more freedom to pick what gives them a sound cue. Allow opt-in for group member joining and chatting notifications. And I think the candy post summarizes this pretty well, so let's just grab it. Similar to this one. Allow users to select that they would like a browser notification when another user joins a group. Maybe sub option, or maybe like would you want like a secondary option for only when you're the group leader kind of stuff? Is that too specific? I don't know. I'm just gonna put it in for now and we can discuss later. And then that would be good. And then also allow the same for chat messages. I feel like that would get pretty annoying as a browser notification. It would just be an audio queue. Audio queue only, no browser notification. Because the browser notification is like that pop-up you get in the bottom right that says, hey, your ranked game is ready, if you weren't paying attention. That comes with a sound as well, but I wouldn't Like who would want that every single time a message comes in? Probably nobody. And again, that's only when it's not your active tab. So I don't know. We'll leave it at that. I think that's a good suggestion though. This is where am I? Enhancement. This is probably a higher effort. I'm not going to put an effort on this one. Just an enhancement. And we'll create that, and we will say it's planned. All right, and that brings us up to date for the candy post. So that is good. Any questions about that? I got some notifications. What does that mean? Five people voted on this? Oh, why is it telling me that? Okay. All right, whatever. Yeah, good enough. Let's move on now to our feature building session. So this is a smaller feature compared to some of the ones we've built in the past, but I think it'd be pretty cool. So let me set the stage a little bit. We should make a document for this as well. So I was chatting with somebody about neutral flag games, and we've talked in the past on stream about potentially adding in clutch time for neutral flag games and trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. And I was thinking more about the suggestion somebody had to have potato flags potato flags exist, but only like during clutch time kind of thing. So you know that during the regular game, it is what it is. But if you get to clutch time, the team that's winning would have to hold the flag for like 5 seconds and then it would pop them and then the game would end, or the losing team can grab it from them in that time and still score, tie the game, and send it to overtime. And I thought that was a pretty novel suggestion, but we don't really have a clean way to do something like that. And so I was trying to figure out what does that feature actually look like from a development standpoint? How could we use it? How could we build on it, make it something that's actually useful for other things? And what I came up with loosely was that we want to have a way to have game state specific settings. And to kind of ease everyone into this, we kind of have a way to do this already. If you look at the groups tab right now, we have like your public game settings right now where you have your respawn increments in overtime. So you have your OT respawn increment is 3 seconds. So this functionally is a game state specific setting, because in regulation, which is just the traditional game state from 6 minutes to 0, you don't have any change to your respawn. It's always 3 seconds. But when you get to overtime, that changes. Now you have an increment. Every time you pop, you're adding 3 seconds to your respawn timer. So that is a state specific setting change. So I'm wondering, is there something we can do to allow all settings, or at least a majority of settings, to also be state specific? And instead of having to build in clutch time options for all the different capping things we talked about, but then also add in potato flag during clutch time. Like you can do that, but why not just have a way to say, okay, during regulation, no potato flags. During clutch time, yes, potato flags. During overtime, no potato flags. So you can just set it very clearly instead of having to have all of these sub options of the things that you're trying to do. And it would also give freedom to things like your OT respawn increment. Maybe you have a mini game where it should increment by 1 second in regulation, and then it becomes 5 seconds in overtime or something like that. You can do more with it for everything. Same thing with like jump limit. Maybe you have a map where it's like a 1 jump limit, and then okay, nobody got it in 5 minutes. Now we're going to increase to 2. And like, so I don't know, just other ways of messing with things, but making them state specific. So the 3 main game states that we have are active, clutch, and overtime. And I don't think we have any plans to add others in the future. If you're a script writer, you're also going to note that there is also countdown, there is also ended, and there is also inactive, I think is the last one. But no, there are 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What am I missing? Active, ended. Am I done? Doesn't matter. The 3 important ones are active, clutch, and overtime. That's what really matters. So how would we present this is the hard part. So you think about your group dropdown. You would take all of this, and it would basically have to be, I don't know. Like that's what we're here to discuss. How do we get this to actually not look like garbage? Because we've talked in the past about better ways to like filter through all the possible options. I think I still want to do that, but it's not really related to, like, we can do that and also this. I think what we would have to do is have like a drop down that says which state you're modifying, and then you'd have to show each state as the settings that it has. I don't know. That's what we're here to discuss, obviously. So if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to start working through this and think out loud. And if I'm doing something dumb, let me know. We'll move on. So currently exists with OT respawn increment. What's the other one there? It's OT bonus juke juices. Let me just write the premise out a little bit more while I think about this in the back of my head. Transitions one state to the next. Also transition to the rule set of that new state. Now we'd have to keep in mind some settings should not be state specific. Obvious things like the map. Oh, well, actually, I take that back. Obvious things like the clock, for example. You don't want the clock changing the runtime, I guess. Like you have a 6 minutes. Like this can't be specific to well, now I'm doubting that. Like, could you have like a cap on how long overtime can be, where you say that regulation is 5 minutes, clutch time is infinite, and then overtime is a maximum of 10 minutes, and then the game ends in a tie? Like, is there a way to do that? TagPro needs to spend money on subsidizing players into UX and UI design. I do not come from a development background, if that wasn't immediately obvious to anybody. UI and UX are prized possessions amongst the developer community. So if you're one of those people who knows how to make things look good, get in my DMs, because I am not one of those people. So anyway, what things cannot ever be state specific? How about like overtime can't, but it is a state, so it's not really a state setting. I don't know. I feel like everything. The biggest thing I'm stuck on is like the game mode and the map, because I think we initialize the whole game differently with that, so we'd have to revisit them. Game mode map may be locked from the start, and that's not to say we couldn't do it, but it wouldn't be where you start if you build something like this. You'd want to have it be simpler things like your clutch time, potato flag stuff, but I forgot if I mentioned this. Potato flags, for those who are not aware, is a flag that looks and is shaped like a potato, but it takes the place of an actual flag tile. You can grab it like a flag, you can capture it like a flag, but if you hold it for too long, it explodes and it pops you. So the idea for clutch time with neutral flags is that in clutch time, if the winning team is holding the flag, that flag is actually a potato flag and will pop them within 5 seconds if they continue to hold it. But if the losing team pops them and steals the flag, it stays as a regular flag because they're trying to cap to tie the game up. And it's just because neutral flag, you can't handle the clutch time the same way that you do capture the flag, because with capture the flag, only one team can have that flag. If you have a grab when it goes to clutch time, when you cap or when you pop, it's over. But that's not how neutral flag works, because you have handoffs where you would pop, but you're still setting up a capping opportunity, so you wouldn't want it to be immediately game ending for the flag carrier to pop as the losing team. So that's what we're trying to, that's what the start of this whole conversation. Just it's important to know what a potato is for what I'm doing here. So game mode and map may be locked from the start. Safer to avoid these initially. I'm just looking, let's look at some other options that we have here. No reason we can't change basic physics, acceleration, top speed, bounciness. Player respawn would probably stay separate. Yeah, instead of OT respawn increment, it would just be respawn increment. OT respawn increment and bonus juke juices would need to be renamed into just respawn increment and bonus juke juice. Then applied to OT if that is where they are wanted. User scripts, surely not. So you'd have no scripts during the regulation, and then you get to overtime. You're like, all right, everyone can use a bot. Go for it, whatever. To do your thing. Use your timers. Break everything. Why not? Yes, that's a good point. No script. Thank you for that visual, Grant. I appreciate that. No script cannot be changed mid-game. I know that for a fact. Just because the way games are set up, it's a whole different way of handling it. The game just works differently, and no script specifically to stop scripts. So that is correct. What else? Map testing mode probably can't be changed. Map testing mode. Clutch time. I'm curious about this because clutch time is just the fact that when you go from regulation, when regulation ends, something happens. So I don't think this is a, what is clutch time, right? It's not a state specific. It's the existence of another state. So you would need to, the only way to get out of clutch time is for something to happen in clutch time. So you would need to also separate out how a state can end, and then have the options that we have here as ways for clutch time to end. So you would have to have like your timer right now. The only way that regulation ends is time runs out, or you hit a capture limit, or you hit a mercy rule. The only way clutch time ends is that nobody is holding a flag with some certain parameters. So you would have to remove both of those from what they are and make them like you would have to remove the existence of states to do that, because clutch time wouldn't be anything. It would just be not regulation. Like you'd have regulation and then whatever the next one is, and you apply your settings to it, and then as many of those as you want. So you would. Am I losing my mind or am I cooking? I can't tell. Like, you would need to just have one thing that is, this is your state. What do you want to do in it? And then how does that state end? And then, okay, maybe that state ends and you go to this one and you can call this one clutch time, call it whatever the hell you want. You've got all of these settings that happen. This is how this one ends. Okay, now you've got another one. Now we're calling this one overtime. This is what happens and this is how it ends. So you wouldn't have any states. You would just have state and then end state. Am I losing people? Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of against how it works, but it removes the need for the complexity of state-specific things, because you're just creating states and how they end, and you can make as many of those as you want. So you could have 9 states if you wanted to, and you could have different things happening to transition to the next one or end the game at any point. Like this is way more complicated than I wanted it to be, but I feel like I'm onto something here, or I'm losing my mind. There's never rule that out. Someone please say something. I feel like I'm losing it. scope creep. Yeah. So the problem I'm running into right now is if we go down the path of not doing what I just said, are we going to get so far down it that we loop back around to what I just said as the only viable way out of problems that we create along the way? Because with the clutch time problem, ignoring what I just said, we're saying, okay, you have 3 game states. What is clutch time? It's just regulation settings with a different parameter for going to overtime, because the parameter for going to overtime is the game is tied and time runs out. So now we're saying, okay, actually change that parameter to be the game is tied and time runs out and nobody is holding a flag. Now we go to overtime. So all you're doing with clutch time is changing how regulation ends. It's not actually a new state, right? I mean, it's a new state in a from a development standpoint, but it's not actually. The chat's way too quiet. It's freaking me out. I feel like everyone's like staring at me like, "What's this guy doing?" So transition states on more actions rather than on preset ones. Like for example, you can increase max speed after every cap or something. Well, maybe because what you could do for that, and just I'm going to run down this line of thinking. If you're saying increase speed after every cap, you would say that you have this first ambiguous starting state. This state ends when any team captures the flag. The game doesn't end, that state just transitions to the next state. And in the next state, you have an acceleration of 150. How does this state end? Oh, it ends if the clock runs out, so you have 2 answers. If the clock runs out during this state, the game ends, or if another person caps, the clock, doesn't matter what the clock is doing, we just transition to the third state. And now in the third state, maybe acceleration's 175. So you could have as many states as you want, and the only way that you transition between them is the parameter that you've defined. So this is 2 different things entirely. This is how do you end a game state, and then what do you do in a game state? So it's not even what I was suggesting at the start, but I feel like it's cooler than what I was suggesting at the start. So yeah. Which is what it is now. Like what is regulation? It's just a game state that when the conditions are met, you transition to overtime or you end the game based on an assessment that happens when the clock runs out. Well, the assessment's actually happening every second, but the assessment includes checking the clock to make sure that it has not run out. So it just doesn't allow you to go to overtime until the clock is 0. And so it's like an and statement. So end. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. Bear with me. Bear with me. If I go and I open up Google Sheets, okay, stay with me, and I make Google Forms, and I make a form, and in my form, I want to create another question. That's fine. But what if I want to create another category? I have a section. At the end of this section, I want to submit the form, or I want to go to section 2. So all we're talking about right now is we have a game state, and at the end of that game state, do I want to go to the next game state, or do I want to end the game? Am I making sense? So what we're doing is describing what are the parameters to decide that we either go to section 2 or that we submit the form. So we're saying that if the clock is 0 and the score is tied, we're going to go to section 2. But if the clock is 0 and the score is 1, we're going to submit the form. That's overtime or end the game. So what we're describing here is that same check at the end of the state that you're in. Do you end the game or do you progress to the next state? And that does not need to happen when the clock hits 0. That can be happening every second and you're saying, do we end the game now or do we progress to the next state? Think about a mercy rule. What's happening there is every step you're checking, is the score within 3 or is it greater, or is it 3 or more? And if at any point that step says, oh, the score is 3 or more, you go straight to ending the game. It doesn't matter what the clock is saying. So it's just a different check happening every, I'm going to say every second, but it's more frequent than that. Every second you're checking, do we meet any of the requirements to transition to the end of the game? Do we meet any of the requirements to transition to clutch time? Do we meet to transition to overtime? Like everything you're doing is just checking to see if you can leave the current state and where do you go if you can leave it. So is the end goal to give a user provide a way to define different settings based on different conditions? I think that's where I'm leading, because if you want to have different settings in different states, it matters how you get from one state to the next. And the only way you can decide how to get from one state to the next is to define state ending parameters, where you can say, okay, end this state if the clock hits 0 or the score is greater than 3 or the cap difference is +1 or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what the actual, like you just need to be able to say, I think I need my paint.net for this. We're doing it. We're going paint.net. Please. Where is it? Oh yeah, it would definitely be an advanced settings thing. Yeah, this is, I'll be very clear. This is not, this is not like, oh, everyone should figure this out. I'm just saying, if we want to do what I initially was suggested, you have to actually kind of go farther with it. Why can't I? Oh, did I break paint.net again? Aha! No, it did the thing again. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to bother with this again. That's weird. If I click on filters, it shows everything that I want, but it's not showing on the actual stream. I don't want to update paint.net. All right, anyway, back to what I was saying. I think I need to actually table this and kind of revisit this on my own time. Yeah, it's not, because it's not practical with the average user. It's basically just to customize your entire game kind of thing. Small fee. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like, oh, we could just pick the thing that you want to do in clutch time and pick the thing in overtime. Okay, let me reel it back in. Let's actually do that and ignore everything I just talked about, because I want to do that now, but I don't want to spend the rest of the stream on that. So we're going to say, okay, each of these settings, clutch time is its own state. So you're saying clutch time settings are a option only in active. So you'd have clutch transitioning to clutch time. Clutch time is only an option in regulation, not offered during clutch time or overtime. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you're in overtime, you can't say, oh, overtime with clutch time. Oh, that's not, no. So it's only active there. And then all of the options with clutch time would just be the same. They would be tacked onto active. Fine. Then in clutch time, you can have all of the standard physics settings that you have now. All standard physics settings, and then overtime, all standard physics settings. Okay. And then for overtime, this is kind of back to what I was just saying, but you can also have like a mercy rule can be here. Like, do you go to overtime? Now you have to win by 2 in overtime kind of thing. So it's like a first to 5 caps thing. So you could do a setting where it's a cap limit of 5 and then a no mercy rule. And then in overtime, you say, okay, it's now no capture limit, but it's a +2 cap mercy. So you just keep going back and forth until one team is winning by 2. Pretty common to like pick up basketball. That would give you the freedom to do that. So you can still have non-physics settings here. just not here. Could be an easy UI, says Bambi. I just completely do not believe you. Each state can be a preset and add a drop down to choose what switches the state. Well, yeah, the problem is the drop down to choose what switches because we're no, don't. I'm not doing this again. No, you need to have so many different customizable options like the score differences and the timer and mercy rule. No, we're not. No. You mentioned like no. I'll have this conversation later. DM me if you want to talk about this. DM me. We'll get into it. It'll be great. We're keeping it simple. Transition. Yep. Okay. What else? I think having power-ups is fine. You could have like no power-ups during regulation. You add in TagPros during overtime kind of thing. That's whatever. Pup indicators, I guess it doesn't really matter. Respawn warnings, fine. Like there's nothing wrong with having these state-specific. Delay power-ups one respawn cycle. That probably has to be regulation only. I can't think of a way that you would do this. Unless you, well, no, because the timer's set 60 seconds. It doesn't care about, power-ups don't care what the state of the game is. They just care about when they were last grabbed to set what their next one is going to be. So the only thing that would be weird about this is if you add in, like for example, the TagPro power-up, if you have it disabled during regulation, enabled in overtime, it wouldn't show up until the first round into overtime after that next power-up is grabbed because it wasn't eligible to spawn when it spawned up in regulation. But that's kind of expected behavior anyway, so that's fine. Delay power-ups 1 minute here only. Power-up respawn. Would you? I guess you can change the time it takes. Yeah, that's whatever. Bomb respawn, boost respawn. That's fine. Potato we talked about. Scripts we talked about. That's Egg Ball losing team start. Does Egg Ball have overtime? I forget. We should probably hide that unless Egg Ball is active. No, you can do it. So. Yeah, that can be state specific because if you want the losing team to start only in overtime, I don't actually know what that does, but I don't see why that wouldn't work. Jump movement, that seems fine. Jump by speed is fine. Map test we talked about. Clutch time we talked about. Ghost mode is fine. There's no reason any of these couldn't work state specific. Yeah, okay, I think that, okay. The basic version of this, I think, is summarized pretty well in front of us. You would just have 3 different states. You would pick which state you're modifying and just a slightly different drop-down list based on which one you are modifying. That's fine. We're gonna keep it at that, and I'm gonna go lose my mind on this over the weekend and see if I can figure out what I was trying to say in front of everybody here. Oh my god. I feel like I'm on something. I really do, but I don't want to sit here and waffle for 2 hours. All right. Anything not obvious? I mean, this is not a super well fleshed out feature right now, but it's a starting point for a thing in the future, which is good enough for me. What else can we do here? So we want to have, would want a drop down to indicate which state is being modified. Yeah, this could all be a preset. It'd be a pretty long code, but you could still do a preset for this. That's not a problem. Would you want like state specific preset versus the whole thing? I think you'd want to be able to say, okay, for this state, I want to use this preset. For this state, I want to use this preset, and then put it together for me. And then also, if you wanted to just have a preset for the whole group where it just combines them, basically, that should be trivial from a development standpoint. All right, what else? I feel like that covers enough. Yeah, that's good enough for me. I think we're going to call it there. So, winding down. like I mentioned at the start of the stream, sorry for the stream cutting out. I'm going to have to figure out how to splice those two streams together. Release is scheduled for Monday morning. We are going to post the release notes when it goes live. You'll get a downtime notice Sunday night. We might have a brief testing session over the weekend. If you aren't already opted in to testing notifications, you can do that in the role assignment channel in the official Discord, which you can find linked at the bottom of the homepage at tagpro.gg. Next Friday is going to be a release-focused stream. We're just going to spend the whole time talking about what went into the release, what the implications are for some of the features added, what the plans are for some of those features in the future, and then the plans for the game as a whole going forward. Aside from the obvious things, we've got the in-game shop coming up and then the Steam release after that. So talking a little bit more about how we're working up to those, what the plans are to get them done, out the door, that kind of stuff, the timeline. Hopefully we can chat about it a little bit. Although I don't think anyone trusts me about timelines anymore for good reason, because I'm just not good at estimating those kinds of things. I'm trying to get better at it. What I've learned is just to double whatever time you think it's going to be. But the Monday part, we're not doubling. It's going to be Monday. It's scheduled. It's done. It's ready. Monday morning. Yeah. All right. Good enough. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I thought I was about to say something else, but I forget what it is. So I will see you all next week. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your Friday, and goodbye.